Hey friends, I'm Christy and you're listening to Rock the Damn Boat. If you've ever bitten your tongue to keep the peace or said yes when every part of you wanted to say no, this one's for you. We're diving into the messy, real stuff that people pleasers like me have spent years avoiding. It's time to have the hard conversations, shake things up, and learn to stand tall even when it makes waves. And if you have not hit the follow or subscribe button, you will want to now, because February on Rock the Damn Boat is all about listening to your heart. This month, I'm talking with women who've built companies, led teams, and created real momentum, and women who've had the courage to pause when their heart asked for something different. Because success isn't just about pushing forward. Sometimes it's about tuning in, honoring what's true, and trusting that rest, recalibration, or a bold pivot can be just as powerful as building an empire. I am so excited by my guest today. We have a very personal connection. She has been my own yoga instructor since 2019. Allie Van Fossen is a YouTube creator, 500-hour registered yoga teacher, and the founder of the Body, Mind, Soul Studio. Through her widely followed YouTube channel and online programs, Allie has helped thousands of students build sustainable strength, flexibility, and self-trust without hustle or perfectionism. As a mother of 2 young daughters, Allie is now modeling what embodied leadership looks like off the mat. In 2026, she made the intentional decision to take a power pause, allowing her community to coexist with the real demands of motherhood, proving that rest, boundaries, and seasonality can be just as powerful as consistency. Welcome to the show, Allie. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you, Christy. What a gift for you to be in the leadership teacher role here in this container. And I get to sit back and be the student. And it's nice. We're role reversing here after many years.
That's true. I hadn't thought about it like that, but you know, from having this relationship for going on 7 years, finding my voice has absolutely been a beautiful benefit of being part of the Body, Mind, Soul Studio, from learning under you. So I'm grateful for that. I feel a little fangirlish, you know, just because you've been such a wonderful. If I had to pick a boat rocking role model, you're definitely high
We've
up
had a
there.
lot of history together, and we've really grown up together the past decade, and a lot has transpired, unfolded, revealed itself for both of us, struggles, successes. So we've been side by side through quite a bit.
So true. And that's definitely what will unfold in our conversation. I know from your early days as a teacher and your YouTube channel, how you've transformed and evolved your own business and yoga practice. I have been on the same journey with starting yoga to be able to touch my toes, and now not being as concerned as to whether or not I even get on the mat to practice yoga. One of the things that inspires me with anyone, and especially you, is making the bold decision to leave corporate, because that is something I did last November. I'm 50, so it took me a while to get to this point in my life and wanting to follow a more creative lifestyle. But you did that pretty early on. So can we go way back to when you first were making that decision and getting into business for yourself?
I mean, interestingly, I left corporate maybe around 28, 27. And I did a decade in the marketing, public relations, advertising field, which is what I majored in out of college. And my last stint was with L'Oreal Salon Centric for about 4 years in their in-store department field. And all the while, I was quietly or not so quietly pursuing an online presence. I did a brief stint living abroad in Italy with my girlfriends, and to give us some context, around this time, Instagram was just coming online. This is when everyone was applying a filter to their photo. Pinterest was still invitation only. So it was like very intimate and exclusive. So that was the digital landscape, and blogging was incredibly popular. And I came back from Italy with a fire lit beneath me because I met so many travel bloggers and
Mm.
people full time living abroad, sustaining themselves and supporting themselves through blogging. And so I came back with a whole new awareness of what was possible. And I started a blog called The Journey Junkie. That was my alias for quite a long time. And I blogged and I blogged and I blogged about all of my overseas travels. But then, maybe a year into it, I ran out of stuff to talk about because now I was sitting in a cubicle in a corporation at my desk, quietly blogging when my boss wasn't looking, and really any chance I could get before work, on my lunch break, in the evening, I was pursuing my blog. At the same time, I was very disciplined and devoted to my yoga asana practice, I'll say. And I was also going through my yoga teacher training program, which was a long-term 10, 11-month program locally in person. And upon graduating, I shifted the whole blog to focus on yoga. And so this was back in the day, right? Like 10 accessories you need for your yoga practice and 5 yoga postures to open, quote unquote, open your hips. And Pinterest really helped me build momentum. And slowly but surely, I got on YouTube. I worked up the courage and the tenacity. I know you love that word, Christy, to get on YouTube and teach there. And this was at a time where teaching yoga online was really frowned upon. It was almost vilified in a sense. It was very uncommon. And it was really thought that it was unsafe, it was inappropriate, it was disrespectful to the tradition. People weren't teaching online yet. And so I definitely felt kind of insecure about it, but did it anyway, because I quickly realized after finishing my YTT that becoming a yoga teacher was not a sustainable path if I was going to take the traditional means or method, which is running all over town, teaching studio classes at several studios, trying to pick up private clients, corporate clients. You're really mishmashing your salary together and you're a 1099. You have no benefits. So I quickly realized this isn't going to work because I was like on Operation Break Out of the Cubicle. How can I get out of the cubicle? So did the studio thing for a year and a half and realized this is not the path. This is not the solution. Let me get online. Let's see what can happen here. And I'll say 2-3 years into it, again, I'm still working my corporate gig. I'm really building steam. The momentum is picking up. My YouTube channel's growing, and I put out my first paid product, the Body, Mind, Soul Detox. I brought in almost double my annual salary within 3 weeks.
Wow.
And that was the first, like, oh my gosh, I have something here. 2.5 years into consistent effort, I think I might have figured it out. So I kept plugging away, kept working, and I launched the program a second time. So it was one of those like open the doors, close the door type model. Launched it a second time and it performed again. And that was my proof. Like, okay, I can walk away from corporate. I've sold something twice now. I've made really good revenue and profit. And so I feel as though the foundation is sturdy enough for me to walk away.
That's amazing. And you said it was maybe a little intimidating to get on video. Was there something in particular that gave you the courage to do that, or just ready to pioneer in something? Because YouTube wasn't nearly as big then either.
My own fire, like I said, to break out of the cubicle. I knew I didn't belong there. And that's what was modeled to me by my parents and society. You get a corporate job, you set up all of your finances, you do this corporate job until your retirement. And I had such a fire for travel. And the 2-3 weeks that were allotted to me just weren't enough. And I also was now really intrigued by the world of yoga and I wanted to go on trainings. And I was so frustrated that my life was being dictated by a corporation. And so that was this really big fuel. Additionally, I'm someone who likes to be visible and seen, or at least back then I did. And growing up, I always did. And then finally, my husband, Myers, who we've been together for almost 20 years now, he really pushed me and motivated me and also helped me with all of the tech. So the tech is really intimidating. And I have great compassion for anyone that does not have a tech savvy partner or friend, because that's who Myers was for me and still is. But those first few videos were a GoPro with a fisheye lens.
I love it. Hey, imperfect action. You've taught all of your students that. So there you go.
So it was a lot of amateur hour.
Yep.
As expected. In the beginning, it was a lot of amateur hour, but I'll say the combination of me wanting to break out of the corporate world, my husband being supportive, and just this natural desire to be seen and be visible, and my love for the yoga practice, all of that combined is what pushed me to get online and stay online and really see it through.
I love that. And yeah, I can hear that around the passion for what you knew you wanted to be doing. And that's for me writing. I have had quit retail and write full time on my roadmap for probably at least 5 years. And now, of course, it involves speaking. At the time that I came up with that dream or goal, I was not wanting to be in the spotlight. I had this weird little hidden desire, but I didn't have the practice. So I think over time, I've realized like, hey, I really do like being in front of a camera and talking to people. And obviously with launching a podcast, but it took me a little longer to get comfortable with that level of visibility. But I've had little ways of practicing over time, like little 3-minute YouTube inspirational videos or different things. So, yeah, it can come with practice as well.
It can. And, I feel as though through motherhood, and because I have worked for myself and worked from home for many, many years now, and then motherhood itself can be very isolating. I've like forgotten how to be visible and how to feel comfortable being seen. I'm in a wintering season right now, but one of my hopes is to reemerge and step back into spring, but it feels scary.
Yeah.
Even after doing so much visible work, it's like, I don't know where to start or how to begin again. So, for anyone listening who feels like I could never do that, being seen is scary, being visible is difficult, I think Christy and I can both empathize. And, we talk a lot about seasons inside the Body, Mind, Soul studio, and really respecting and honoring and owning your season. And yeah, I'm in a season of like spring feels scary.
That makes sense. And you've done it for a long time. And I think your evolution of your yoga practice from being very energetic and very fiery and that power yoga type of a practice to then honoring your body and your phase of life and getting into quieter practices, it makes sense to me that you're in this more sort of introspective season. When I coach women and I talk about vitality in the Thrive method, and there's sun salutations if you want to get your energy flowing, and then there's child's pose or shavasana if you need to cool your energy. So even within our asana practice, and sometimes it's fiery and sometimes it's quiet, but
Absolutely.
I want to circle back to if my listeners have listened to my episode with my husband, Ryan, they know that he is maybe less than supportive. He's supportive, but he's been reluctant and a little hesitant and not very involved with the business. And I hear just how amazing that's been with you and Myers. And so he's always had his own career too, but been helping you with your business. And tell us a little bit about, in the early days when you were working together and the sailing adventure and kind of just what that looks like to build these dreams together.
Yeah. Back in the earlier days, when I was blogging, when I first got on YouTube, we both were working full time in our respective careers. He's in construction, he's a civil engineer and works really long, full hours. really dedicated. It requires a ton of focus on his part. But I would be waking up at like 5 a.m. to write blog posts. I would work in the evenings, and almost every weekend, we were filming YouTube videos in what was then called the Zen Den. And it was this outdoor, rickety kind of shack, lanai thing on the back of our rental property, that on one little corner that we made look zen and beautiful is what you all saw. And then behind that was a total shit show of tools and fishing gear and diving gear and furniture and dust and dirt. And
Never knew. Yeah,
but
the power of
but what the viewer saw was this beautiful kind of zen oasis in Florida that, by the way, was hot as hell to film in. But every single weekend, him and I were filming, and then we were learning together the editing software programs, watching YouTube tutorials and figuring that out as we went. And I edited most of the material, but he really helped me sit down and learn the program. And that's where having a supportive partner is so helpful, because gosh, that stuff is mind-numbingly frustrating to learn.
Absolutely.
And when you don't have the budget to hire a video editor or a videographer, like, you are wearing all of the hats, which I did for so many years. And then once my business got to a place where it was reliable, after I told you those 2 launches, I was also really begging Myers for us to walk away from what I call the matrix and go on an extended trip. And I really had my heart set on backpacking through Asia. He said, absolutely not. He's not leaving his career to backpack through Asia and sleep in hostels. And he needs something for his mind to be doing. And the only way he would walk away is if we went sailing, because he has a lifelong dream of circumnavigating. He grew up sailing and was on a sailing team, and he's truly a fish out of water. He loves the ocean deeply and dearly. Me, knowing I don't get seasick, but having never sailed a day in my life, said, fine, let's do that. And we had this vision for, say, 2 years or so, while we saved up money and while we really wrapped our heads and hearts around the idea that we were leaving. Came into some money, a wonderful bonus from my husband's career that allowed us to purchase the sailing vessel. She was big and seaworthy and 30 years old and great to cross oceans, but tons of stuff needed to be repaired or updated, etc. And we really didn't know what we were doing. Neither of us had lived aboard a boat. He had only sailed smaller boats. So we went into it very naive. And that's like the beauty of being young, I think.
I would agree. Yes, yes.
And innocent. And we left
You don't
with
know what you don't know. And
you don't
that's
know
good.
what you don't know. We left with like 30 grand in our bank account, which quickly was liquidated. But we made it work. And simultaneously, he now is out of a job, right? Like, of course, his job is to sail the vessel, repair the boat, navigate, but he's got a lot of time on his hands. And so now he was really able to help me elevate everything. We were filming way more, taking tons of more photos. And we're also 2 young kids in our 20s living on a boat. So it was very aspirational, of course. Like, we've broken away from corporate. We're on a sailboat. We're doing something very different. And I think that is what really springboarded my company into a new realm.
Yeah. And that was around the time that I found you.
You entered in around
Yes.
then.
I was practicing yoga in my guest bedroom and got to see all these beautiful locations. And you were doing all this work for the monthly membership, which is when I believe I joined in July of 2019. And the format at that time was we got a new topic every month, and we had
a workbook and practices.
And, yes.
The sailing trip was 2.5 years for our listeners. And we started in the Caribbean, passed through the Panama Canal, over to the Galapagos, across the Pacific Ocean, and through half of the South Pacific, and then parked the boat in New Zealand, came home to visit our friends and family. It had been quite some time since we'd really spent quality time in the States. This is right before COVID. Of course, no one knows COVID's going to happen. Our flights back to New Zealand are April 1st. Of course, they get canceled. About halfway through the trip, my first employee, Chelsea Roush, says to me, I think you should start a membership. And I said, okay, let's do that. And we did that. And it is to date one of my greatest business decisions ever. Thank you, Chelsea, for that idea. It was one of the most fulfilling things that I've done because the studio lasted up until right now at the time of this recording. I've just closed down the studio after 7 years of leadership and studentship, connection, community, incredible work on behalf of the students and the seekers and the teachers and the team and everyone who's contributed to that place. But we had a good 7-year run together, starting from that initial decision while sailing to begin an online studio format that operated really monthly on a monthly
Yes.
basis.
I joined in July. I didn't really participate the first couple of months. I just had a lot going on. And
But
then
then the
when I,
fall equinox came.
yes, yes, yeah. And that was when I think that September was like, okay, from a seasonal perspective, things are getting quieter. We did the fall equinox centered
Yeah.
lessons.
I remember
And
you really coming online and being participatory from that day forward, like from that
yes,
month forward.
yes, I set those goals. I started writing. And in 2021, I published my memoir. So that was unfolded over the course of 2020. It was also the year that you did the manifestation journey. And we walked through the chakra system every month of 2020. And just having that year long dedication to a path was what I needed. And it's so interesting now. So I was just recently diagnosed with ADHD, and you kind of file through back all these things in your life that, times where you were really focused on something. And I think that path for me was just what I needed to keep my momentum going and not get bored with something, because I would tend to be like, oh, I work out for 6 months and then I don't work out for 6 months. I was so excited to do that. I was very involved with that path.
I love hearing that from you. And I know that about you too, that you were very involved. One of the years inside the Body, Mind, Soul studio was devoted specifically to the chakra manifestation program or pathway. And it's basically going in reverse. You start from the crown chakra and you end at the Muladhara chakra at the base of your being. Often the system is traveled vertically, starting from the bottom, heading to the top. But Anodea Judith, whom I studied with, travels both ways, and both are beautiful. And manifestation one, though, is really tangible for us earthly beings. We live in an earthly world, and creating and manifesting and bringing things down from the cerebral state is so fulfilling. That year-long focus was incredibly meaningful for you and so many others, and for me. And for your listeners, I think anytime we can reflect back on something that's been of great breadth and depth, there's a fondness there. In a world that we live in right now that is so highly fragmented and fractured, and there's so much distraction, and it's just so dang difficult to sustain anything.
True. And even in hearing you talk about your early days and preparing for sailing, you contemplated that and worked toward that over time. So when we talk about tenacity and holding on to an outcome regardless of the ups and downs and all the setbacks and all of those things, that you've modeled that as well, just in how you've prepared. And so I think when we get excited about a dream and we want it to happen now, and just have to remember that whether you're contemplating a corporate exit or starting a business or writing a book, whatever that is, that the time and effort.
Even when you've done it a dozen times, it's hard to remember that things take time.
Yes, yes. Patience is not my strong suit. It's why I have a tortoise tattooed on my body as a good reminder.
And it's also hard to work up the courage to bring things down to the earth plane. Ideas are beautiful, but then actually growing legs and putting a foundation beneath it is quite frightening. Again, even when you've done it, like me, a dozen times over, it's always like, how do I make this ethereal, intangible idea something real?
Yes. Well, and that's why I'm so grateful that you're here sharing your story. And that's what the podcast is about, helping to inspire with lots of different stories of women who found the courage to make a big pivot or find some way to. I was raised not to rock the boat, that like you said, it's corporate, here was your path
Same.
laid out for you. And so to
I
pivot.
wasn't shown any rocking. No rocking.
Right. That's what my
Linear,
mom said. She was, told, don't rock the boat. And so, yeah,
as were
yeah.
so many women.
I want to talk a little bit too about we bring these ideas to life, and that it's okay to evolve our practices, because you went from the Journey Junkie on YouTube to then at one point you rebranded your entire website,
Yeah.
allievanfossen.com, and different ways that your business path has mirrored your seasons of life. What can you tell
Yeah.
us about that?
I began practicing yoga when I was 22 years old. So naturally, it was a very fiery, powerful practice. And that's what I was attracted to. And that's what I wanted to teach. And therefore, that's what was attracted back to me. I think, though, in the same breath, I had a really good ability to teach what would be considered quote unquote hard or difficult postures, but I had a really good knack at being able to break it down well enough that even if you were new or unfamiliar, you felt comfortable and included in the experience. Because, like, here you came, Christy, not someone that's like searching for the power, flexible, upside down, outcome.
I vetoed wheel pose the month that we did that. I was like, nope, gonna find something
Exactly.
different.
But so, not to get too granular, I started off really powerful and sustained that output for quite some time. Really power, intense, flexible, pursuing arm balances and inversions.
Mhm.
But I think I was always sprinkling pranayama, some forms of meditation or mindfulness, affirmations, always a shavasana throughout my teachings. I was taught in a very traditional format. I did a very in depth study. And so that's really what I continued to model and share with others, even if it was very powerful from the beginning. Then, we went on our sailing journey and my asana practice really changed. At this point, I've been practicing really primarily in studios. And transitioning to a home practice was incredibly difficult for me. And I really lost my practice for quite some time while I was still teaching. But losing your sense of practice while teaching leads to quite a break in integrity or a misalignment or an inauthenticity that will rise to the surface eventually, which it did for me. But I will say, like, if I'm cutting myself some slack and being compassionate, I was living on a boat that was constantly moving and rocking, which made an asana practice quite difficult. And so I really turned to pranayama and mantra and svadhyaya, studying yogic texts. And that really fueled the Body, Mind, Soul Studio, especially in those earlier days, because my mind was on fire with everything I was reading and I wanted to share it. And that's exactly what I did. Then come COVID, our sailing trip ends. We held out hope, like I think many others did, that COVID would blow over, but a year in, it didn't. So we sold our boat and had our belongings shipped back to us from New Zealand. And at that point, decided to start a family. Our eldest daughter is currently 4. So about 5 years ago, my life changed. I became pregnant. The body undergoes such a metamorphosis, as is obvious. Whether you've grown a human or not, it's very obvious that it's a metamorphosis. And I think 4 or 5 years since becoming a mother, I now can really appreciate what I've gone through in the moment I wasn't able to. I think the actual term is matrescence. It's a time where a woman's brain is completely rewired. It also happens for us at puberty and when we go through menopause. So women get
Yes.
to go through 3, if you have children, transformations, or at least 2, at
Yes.
least. Meanwhile, men go through none. But there are these like pivotal moments where everything shifts and changes. And so one daughter arrives, and I'm really straddling these two worlds. Allie, this new mother who feels it's very foreign and unfamiliar, this identity, this role, this set of responsibilities. And Allie, yoga teacher, entrepreneur, leader, business owner, that feels so familiar and what I more so identify with and am actually more attracted to. And so, first baby arrives, we have a full time nanny, and I'm really able to stay more settled in my previous identity. Come second pregnancy, second baby, things are different. I am now fully a mother, and I would say I'm more on the other side of the two lines. I've embraced and expanded into motherhood, and I'm feeling less and less pulled by Allie, the teacher, the business owner, the entrepreneur, etc. And throughout this time, if I even look at my catalog of work, I can absolutely share with honesty that my passion and dedication and curiosity and interest and just general fire were waning, right? Because the fire was being applied elsewhere. It was being pulled into a new direction.
Yeah, right.
And, I think in the beginning, there was a lot of resistance around motherhood, but over time, it chips away at you. It was a beautiful chipping away process. But for me, it wasn't just a natural, I'm a mom, I'm fully embracing this right out of the gate from the get-go. It was a more gradual, progressive process for me.
I think that's a beautiful thing to point out for people because I chose not to have children. And I even did an episode on that was just my life choice. Then there are women who are desperate to be a mom. And I love that you kind of represent somewhere in the middle of like, you knew
Somewhere
you wanted to
between.
start a family, but yeah, it just was such a big change that it took some time to adjust.
Such a big change. On every level of your being, everything changes. So now second baby's here, and I chose to really be her full-time caretaker and have this more redemptive opportunity or experience in the sense that I didn't hire a full-time nanny. I really wanted to be there for those baby years, which was incredibly hard, but really satisfying and fulfilling. But again, like my energy was needed here, and I had to pull it from where it had been for so many years. And to be a teacher and a leader and create curriculum and material, it really does require a certain level of interest and curiosity and just an inner drive to put out quality work. And I'll say the past year before I came to a conclusion that this needs to end in its current format, I wrestled with my corporate exit, so to speak. And like I knew in my bones, I knew in my gut, I knew in my heart what to do, but it took my mind a solid year to get on board.
And that makes sense to me. You are an amazing content creator. So yes, as your students, we came to rely on newness and new information. I think what was beautiful for me to witness both in the community and just now reflecting on, different transformations, that the right people supported you 100%. I wasn't seeing it from the back end of people who maybe left, canceled their membership, but there are so many of us original students still with you that, I think you, again, were a role model for that in terms of like, hey, I've got to listen to what my body's telling me, to my family obligations, as opposed to being here for all of you all the time. You are in a house with 3 other people. So those people definitely are, it's important to put them first. So,
Yeah.
but I think that's a testament to being passionate about what you do and also calling in the right people. And as a coach and speaker and everything that I'm doing now, I'm watching that unfold for me of people who are coming back and people who In 2020, when we did the manifestation journey, I wanted to start retreats, and it took me another year or two because, of course, COVID. I have a woman coming on retreat this year who joined me 3 years ago. And that is for me just so rewarding. And I know I've been on 2 retreats with you. So it's just, it's
I think when
wonderful.
you're doing heartfelt work, it touches people. And that's when I knew I had to pause the studio. And mind you, listeners, I still have hundreds of people in the studio now. All of their memberships have been greatly reduced. And I'm on, what I would call a power pause or a sabbatical, where I'm delivering no new material, but those who remain have access to the hundreds and hundreds of pieces of material that are currently in there, in hopes that I return renewed, revived, refreshed. But this was the one decision that my husband was not so supportive. The past year that I've been mentioning that my heart's not in it. I just can't keep producing in this way. Like, of course I can make it because I've been doing it. And so I know how to do it, but I knew like, this isn't it. It's not turning me on anymore. And if I'm not turned on, I know in my soul, my students eventually are going to notice. And it's not going to have the ripple effect or the impact that it's intended to. In the yoga world, there's this phrase adhikari, and Kaya, my teacher, has shared this with me. And it means that the seeker is eligible, ready, prepared, like their inner instrument, their mind is able to receive the teachings. And as the teacher, if you're ready and prepared, then you're able to transmit them and do it with skill and integrity. And I knew that I wasn't in a place of being eligible or appropriate or any of those things that I just mentioned. Could I keep creating content and pretending? Yeah. But at a certain point, and because all of you have been with me for so long, like I wasn't willing to fake it.
Mm-hmm.
And he kept pushing back, like, but how are you going to walk away from this revenue and all of your customers and these people? And I just had to trust, like, in walking away, I'll be able to return and produce heartfelt work again. And they will respect that and recognize that because I have adhikari students. You see, it's like all of you are prepared and
Yes.
appropriate and truly devoted to the path. And so I think all of you see that there's this level of reciprocity between us and this awareness and respect that I think comes from doing good, heartfelt work.
That
Yeah.
is similar to me making peace with closing the doors of the Rooted Soul, the brick and mortar yoga studio that I've had open for the last 2 years, which was a beautiful result of taking yoga teacher training with you. And of course, I started out with this fire, and I'm in rural Texas. And so wasn't going to be the ideal market to begin with, but just seeing that, yes, I had a beautiful subset of students who were seekers, and the
Yeah.
majority of people in my area are not. And I wasn't going to fake it either. I was not going to turn my teaching into a very just physical practice and a way to be flexible or get your movement in. It's important to me to carry on what you have taught us, that you have learned from teachers before you. So yeah,
Yeah.
I
So
can
proud of
appreciate that.
you.
And
Like, when Christy, you came right out of 200-hour YTT and straight into opening a brick and mortar yoga studio, which people ask me all the time, would you open a brick and mortar? Hell no. Hell no. That requires such a level of leadership and management and organization. In addition to teaching, I
right.
know that the back end that's required to open and maintain an in-person studio is incredible. So the fact that you went head first and heart first, I shall say, not even head first, and did it as long as you did in the location that you're in is just such
With a
testament.
full-time job, mind you.
Yes, with a full-time job. It's such a
Yes.
testament to you.
Thank
And
you.
how courageous and tenacious you are.
I tell people too, I don't know where my yoga journey ends and my sobriety journey starts, it's also intertwined. So having been sober for almost 8 years as well, that's been such a personal development path for me. And yoga has been a beautiful complement to that. But you're right. I think that learning the back end and developing those small business skills have prepared me to make this big leap to be a full-time creative entrepreneur. And you and I have leaned on each other for that reason, that we don't necessarily have the best support at home. And so being
Yeah.
able to talk to each other about, okay, how are you feeling? And
Yeah,
okay,
you're
we're
right.
doing
Everything
this.
that you just learned in person can absolutely be applied to what you're doing
Yeah.
now. No, nothing is for naught. Going back to pausing, for those of you that are listening, if you know in your bones something's off, please trust that. The mind will take you down so many avenues. Trying to force a square peg into a round hole. And I think we all have to meander and get lost and allow the mind to take us on all of those journeys, right? But eventually the mind will, I think, arrive at the resting place where the heart's been all that time waiting.
Yes. Yes.
And
Right.
I'm even speaking to myself because I have so many heart-centered ideas with who I want to be and how I want to lead and the services I want to offer. Even now, my mind loves to tell me why I can't do that, why I shouldn't do that, and take me down all those avenues, often, negative avenues for the sake of protection, right? But
Yes.
I am perfectly safe and fine and well.
Me
Um,
too. And I keep telling myself that. I think my husband and I agreed to this year, and that's kind of what you and I had talked about. Okay, you can take a year off. So for me, that's a year off from corporate. For you, it's a year away from your business
Creating.
as it was. So I have to get out of my mind the little time stamp that keeps trying to flash.
Oh, well, yeah, you coming out of
Okay.
corporate, that's probably going to
Yes.
take all year
Yes.
to unravel and unwind.
Well, I loved the evolution that you've been on because I have grown with you. Love the idea that you're taking this power pause and this sabbatical for a year to recenter and refocus. You have rocked the damn boat in ways, from starting in the YouTube landscape before so many others, and then now taking this break that your students are all supportive of, and you get to put motherhood first. I like to ask my guests who their boat rocking role model is. So who really encourages you to dare big?
I have a creator I have followed probably since I was 25 and I'm about to be 38. Her name is Melissa Griffin. And I actually bought her course on how to create a course, which is what really taught me how to create a digital product. And it was really the foundation for the Body, Mind, Soul Detox, that first program that gave me really the legs to realize I had a business here. And I followed her religiously. I mean, I read every newsletter, every blog post, signed up for several courses, listened to her podcast. And then 4 or 5 years ago, she walked away from it all. And this
Mm-hmm.
was like a multi-million-dollar business she had built, and kind of citing the same reasons, really a loss of soul, not letting the business evolve alongside her. And I feel that I also fell victim to that too. For many, many years, my business did. It evolved right alongside me, and we were really working in tandem. And then I think motherhood took me this way, like the path forked, and I had to evolve alongside my children, like I was just explaining. And I wasn't able to also evolve with my business. So Melissa disappeared, this aspirational person I've been following for many years. And then about a year or two ago, she resurfaced out of nowhere and had opened a bookstore in Lisbon, Portugal. So she
Wow.
moved abroad, opened a brick and mortar bookstore that has like open mic poetry nights and creative writing workshops. And so I'm like, okay, I'm following the bookstore now because I want to know what this woman's doing. But she's still not really personally sharing anything yet. And I'm like, what is she doing?
The curiosity.
And now in the last, I'll say 3 or 4 months, she is starting to write on Substack and send newsletters again. And she's doing one-on-one coaching. And I can tell she's starting to rebuild her digital presence and work on some courses and programs. And it's just like you were saying, how this woman who came on your retreat years ago and has now rebooked it. Like, I have been following this woman, like I said, for 13 years. I haven't heard from her in 4, but she's back and I'm back too. I'm like,
Yeah.
what are you doing? I want to know. And so she's been a real leader and example for me from afar that you can walk away and you can take a break and you can pause and you don't need to tell anyone what the hell you're doing either. She
Yeah.
really just like fell off the face of the earth. It's been encouraging to see her return in a very creative and different way with a bookstore, but now in her writings. And so she's one of my rock the damn boat, but she's someone that's like comes to mind immediately because it's very fresh for me. And
Yes.
it's like every Substack she puts out, I'm like, oh, gotta stop.
Yeah. Well, now I'm going to have to go find her on Substack because that's one of my creative endeavors now, is really creating that presence on Substack. I'm actually this week doing a Substack boot camp and learning a lot. So,
I
yeah.
love
So I
that.
love
I'm
that.
also
Yeah.
really intrigued and curious about Substack myself. I think many of us are seeking and desiring long form content and like a
Mm-hmm.
sense of depth and richness that has been void, or like the universe has been devoid of it for so many years with these short form content reels
Yes.
that are fun in the moment, but then you like have a hangover from them.
I know we're literally shortening our attention span as a human race. So,
Which,
yeah.
is like one of the major tenets of the yoga practice is bringing your mind into a calm, steady state. And one of those practices is dharana, concentration.
Mm-hmm.
And right now we're sucking at it, myself included. So I'm appreciating the Substack world for that very reason, to just read a long form piece of content again.
Yes, and
Yeah.
I'm enjoying exploring it because I mean, I love coaching women, but I really love writing. And that is my gift. And that is what I feel like I was put here to do. So I'm putting that first.
Trust
And
that.
then, yeah. So,
Yeah.
Allie, it has been amazing. I know you need to get going. It's been a beautiful conversation. I've loved us having each other to lean on as we make these big changes in our lives. And so much of how I put that into practice is what I've learned under you as my yoga teacher. So I'm so grateful for you coming on the show. And I would ask, where to find you, but that's okay. We're giving you 2026 to do what you want to do.
Don't find me right now.
Right.
Everything is outdated and just
Yeah.
don't find me.
That's
I'll find
okay.
you. I'll find
We
you.
will honor your power pause. So
Thank you,
wonderful. Well,
Christy.
thank you so
Thank you so
much.
much.
You've been listening to Rock the Damn Boat, a podcast produced and recorded by Christy Hughes. You can follow, subscribe on both Apple and Spotify, and your 5-star review goes a long way. Thank you so much for your support of the show.